Hello, and welcome back to the Argyle CFO Leadership Forum. My name is Brittany Sullivan with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our esteemed speaker. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which includes complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat, and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce our speaker, Michael Perica, Chief Financial Officer at Rimini Street. We're excited to have Michael with us for a keynote titled Balancing Innovation and Profitability, CFOs at the Forefront of Strategic Decisions. Welcome, Michael, and over to you.
Thank you, Brittany. Thanks, everyone, for joining me and us today. Looking forward to our session. Before we get started, if I could flash the obligatory legal disclaimer. Won't bore everybody with the content of the text, but I'm sure you're all familiar with the need for this. Just quickly would like to introduce who we are here at Rimini Street. We were founded in 2005 and still have the same mission today as a global provider of end-to-end enterprise software support, products, and services. We are publicly listed, traded on the NASDAQ, ticker RMNI, based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, but I'm speaking to you here from Seattle, Washington. We've espoused a remote and continue to have a remote architecture, and it's worked quite well for us in the past 18 years. Over 1,900 employees, 5,000 plus clients of varying size. We have a substantial global reach. Our 29 offices, 21 countries of operations, supporting clients in over 140 countries. Continue a nice growth trajectory. And looking at the bottom left, really technology agnostic on where we support, and then our offerings from a product offering, we have our comprehensive Rimini One. We have various support, managing, consulting, protect, connect, some proprietary technologies across varying industries, as you see on the right, as well as geography. As noted, in the 140 countries, we do have 53% in the U.S. with a very substantial, nearly half of our supported clients in revenue generated rest of world. Here's another snapshot going a little deeper as to the contents of our support solutions, as well as the supported technologies on the left, and our ability to unify and/or have a modular or composable or flexible structure in assisting clients to make innovations in technology decisions so they can overall the enterprise grow and also enhance profitability, the theme of today's discussion. In light of growth and profitability, very difficult when everything is changing almost at all times. Organizations will survive and go on to thrive as tomorrow's leaders will navigate these turbulent times successfully by adjusting their business and IT priorities, objectives, and investments now. When we look at some of the items highlighted at the bottom of the slide, geopolitical issues, we have some difficult situations around the world. I don't know if many of you also involved in having to exit certain regions of conflict, very challenging. Then we had the global pandemic that we all had serious, significant business disruption, sometimes shifting from thriving to surviving, as well as some other compliance needs on ESG. And this is not necessarily a US-centric issue. There are different standards and different initiatives around the world that we have to be aware of. Then there are business and technology challenges, right? Ever-present is security. Extremely challenging, irrespective of whether one is a consumer-based or a business-to-business business model. Challenges with labor, challenges with technologies, the tech stack, new innovative bleeding technology, as well as legacy technologies, areas that I will be focusing on today as CFOs drive innovation, involved in deployment of capital to ensure that we're strategically able to grow and also enhance profitability. Then there's financial uncertainty, difficult times with regard to unprecedented rise in the cost of capital, impacting virtually all of us, the inflationary pressures, not only from a U.S. Standpoint in other regions around the world. Listed the recession here. There are varying debates and with regard to where we are heading, whether it's domestic or abroad, but certainly there are challenges and or almost in the worst case, periods of uncertainty. Therefore, highlighting surveys from many of our peers, and not sure if, how many of those folks were involved in this particular Gartner survey, but looking at the top 10 CFO priorities. And what I find most interesting is aggregating the top 10, the lowest percentage being 68% on the far right, improving budget and process efficiency. That's almost omnipresent, but still over 2/3 listing this and the other 9 items here. Just looking through these items, evaluating on the left, evaluating functional strategy and scope and design. That's an enterprise-wide, number one, enterprise-wide initiative here. Planning and sequencing finance transformation activities. We talk a lot about these days on finance transformation, but I think there's transform digitally or digital transformation, just transformation overall in all functions in an organization. Communicating, engaging with the board. We are fortunate in our vocation to have this obligation virtually omnipresent. Setting finance technology and strategy and roadmap, very centric to our finance function, but as we can all appreciate, engaging with the other function and other business leaders is critical as an initiative within our organization. Developing a planning, budgeting, forecasting strategy. This has enterprise-wide implications. Staff engagement, I would assert that this is not just from a finance perspective, enterprise-wide. Leading organizational change initiatives. Probably tops on the list is transformation through innovation, growth, and profitability. Aligning cost to growth. One of the greatest challenges there is how do we apply innovation so we are able to grow. And then leading transformation programs. We're at the forefront, even more so in the C-suite and the finance C-suite in driving this. So how can we help evolve IT systems and or technology into innovation engines? And here's a very near and dear, not only to myself, to our organization, and one of the main reasons why I came to Rimini Street a little bit over 3 years ago. And that is very difficult to innovate if you're maintaining a vendor-driven roadmap. What do we mean by that? You can only innovate at the speed of the particular chosen vendor, going from bottom to the top. You have individual vendor dependency. Need to rip and replace implementation on a single platform, vendor-forced upgrades to stay supported, as well as the building of infrastructure license and services, one single subscription contract. Now, why not move over? And we need, in order to enhance growth and profitability, to a business-driven roadmap. Going bottom up, reduce your total cost of ownership, get better support, reduce risk through the interchangeable processes and solution, extract maximum value from the existing solutions, modernize. This will be a key theme with not only best in class, but best fitting cloud solutions, driving the innovation and rapid business impact so we can make a difference, engaging with all the function of the organization and aligned to the strategy of the organization, not just the finance and or the technology function. And then enabling business initiatives, critical for that competitive advantage and to grow. What does this mean? Stepping back and looking at an enterprise level. Optimizing the business in a modular approach, also known as composable. Also, I like to view this synonymous with being flexible from an overall business standpoint. Having a flexible modular business architecture allows organizations to quickly shift If it's one committed to a particular investment or IT platform, it's difficult to shift quickly. Using in your selection process modular technologies to allow to your best solutions and capabilities in light of a modular approach. And then, of course, vendors that can align to this. Not the easiest thing. Many are incentivized or enhanced to be on the other side to get you tied in further. More on that a little bit later. So when we're looking at from a innovation technology standpoint, we're all quite familiar with so many platforms with the omnipresent in the core system of record, our ERP system. And looking to the left of the slide here is your traditional ERP suite that has these various modules that are written by a particular vendor and has their own way of operating, not necessarily in line with the business objectives and business processes. So what are we talking about? A modular ERP structure is to separate and view this in different stacks and different layers. Going from the top to the bottom, the area of most interest these days, and we talk a lot about from a cloud perspective, right? Going to the cloud can make a lot of sense. Not always, can make a whole lot of sense for particular technologies or business processes. AI, it's hard to have a discussion these days on technology and not talk about artificial intelligence, particularly generative AI, very popular these days. Then we have the automation, your low-code Internet of Technologies in and out of discussion these days. And then, of course, your user interface. At the highest level, more forward-leaning. And then below that stack, we have the industry-specific applications. You know, we here at Rimini Street are heavy entirely a services business, but as I'm sure with many of you, I've had a lot of experience in the supply chain hardware business, which is a different business model, but it certainly has some similar characteristics. Then there's the important, if you're going to have a modular architecture, to have that interoperability with your core ERP system and then going lower in the stack. But separating and looking at these separately is the key theme in line with flexibility with the enterprise architecture modularity. Here's another look a little bit deeper as far as the stack within your traditional ERP system. And the latest trend from a core ERP system going to the single vendor subscription in the cloud, typically also known as a SaaS model, where the vendor will do everything for you. Fundamentally, the antithesis of flexibility. This can work in certain situations, but it's hard to imagine. And of course, I think we can all appreciate that the one size fits all and the potential disruption in taking away the flexibility to an organization, it's going to be difficult to enhance the growth as well as profitability. From a modular strategy, composable, as I refer to it, a flexible look as your deployment and strategy and look at long-term architecture from an alignment with your business needs, is to have the flexibility and look at these various layers and get specialized. And have the flexibility to be able to change in the ever-changing environment. This managed services stack, you know, a database managed services. Then you have specialized support depending on the application, and still have the core system of record transaction system in place, but maybe move it over to the cloud. We do a lot of that on a daily basis, and this is very popular. And really can free up a lot of capital as well. Moving on from optimization, and from an optimization standpoint, I really espouse and practice what I preach is to start with your existing system. Can we do it? Let's take a look at what the business requirements are. Can we do it with the existing system? No, of course not. Then we have to look outside, not necessarily best in class, but what's best tailored to the organization's objectives and its roadmap. Let's calculate the ROI. And from a modular approach, instead of looking at an overall system perspective, why not look at our cost-based decisions, or from cost-based, decisions to an ROI-based decisions on a modular perspective, from a flexibility. And this doesn't have to be the shortest runway to a payback that we're all looking at appropriately given our vocation, but what is alignment with the near, medium, and long-term business strategy. Compare all the options available. Again, not always best in class. Many times it can be what is best tailored and suited to our business model. So often the minimum viable project is selected, but trying to get out of that thinking. How do we evolve our systems into innovation systems? And so much of this, and this is my key theme today, to align modularity, flexibility, is to categorize in 3 layers, not only the business strategy, but the associated technologies and the look at innovation and your returns. I'll start on the bottom left on the core system, a system of record, core transacting system. Then view going to the top, a system of differentiation. This is really associated with particular technologies and investments that are industry specific. As I noted, we're heavily in services industry, but I have most of my experience in the hardware. In different business models, and this is where you use systems that were more tailored to the industry-specific business model needs. And then the area where we're a lot focused on to align to our business strategy to drive the growth side of it is the system of innovation. Here's a little more in-depth sort of key items with this categorization with regard to the record, differentiation, and innovation. From an attribute standpoint, looking at the core system of record, this is most closely associated with your core ERP system that we're also familiar with, have made heavy investments. In looking at the business process, the pace of change, the life cycle is where I'd like to focus on for each of these layers and categorizing these systems. The pace of change on the system of record is slow and should be slow, rightfully so. Life cycle, more than 10 years. In many conversations around the world with colleagues and even clients, as I'm in a fortunate position of practicing what I preach with regard to our business model and services and how I approach our interaction with the global finance organization, with the various functions in our organization, is what is most key for the system of record is stability. This is a highly transactional system. To transition out such a core system of record is a major and expensive undertaking. What folks tell me, the conversations, keep it stable. I adhere to that. Then we have our systems of differentiation. Look at the pace of change. This is more frequent as our industry is not static. No industry, irrespective of its life cycle, is ever static. Having a life cycle 2 to 5 years, categorize those specific differentiation systems and investments and look at the ROI along these life cycles. Then we get the systems of innovation. And this is where we tailor from a growth perspective, is where we have rapid, very frequent on the fly adjustments, enhancements, reporting. We list daily here, but hopefully it's not that often, mainly on a weekly basis, but it is much more frequent. You have a life cycle that is under 1 year, different ROI characteristics, but certainly more weighted towards the growth side. And you have a planning horizon that can be in the months. Now, this is, when you look into the right, the system as an innovation, this is the area to categorize, and that should lead to the growth initiatives, your go-to-market. As you go more to the left in the system of record is the area focusing on profitability and your total cost of ownership. This is where you can get those levers through this categorization, as I've experienced, in my view, that many of our clients experience as well. And how does this lead to a shift in the capital allocation and assessment through the categorization. And that is, we have, if we look on the right here, that surveys suggest that 73% of enterprise spend on technology and innovation is on run rate spend. 27% is on growth and transformation. If we, on a key theme with flexibility, striving towards growth and enhanced profitability, is to flip the script. Through the categorization and looking at, let's flip it and strive towards, this doesn't obviously happen overnight, is more the systems of innovation. This aligns the finance, the IT organization, the investment in technology, and the ROI towards the go-to-market, towards the business objectives, to the strategic side of the business versus the surviving, the core, the transacting. This is the key message today, and the approach I take, the approach we take, certainly as an organization, that's been a key factor in our success and our ability to service our clients moving forward. So to summarize, with a resilient innovation and IT roadmap is to optimize, evolve, and transform. Question the historical practices of upgrading simply to be on the vendor-dictated roadmap that is perceived as modernization. For the vendor, it's modernization. Is it right for the business? For a core system of record, do we need to upgrade versus allocate, flip the script, those dollars towards a system of differentiation, systems of innovation? Challenge proposed projects. Most of us have our stage gate, our investment committees, architecture committees, and how we deploy our capital. Can we do it with the existing systems, free up the capital to get to these forward-leaning, growth-oriented to balance profitability and growth? Are we re-implementing, re-platforming, redoing? Why are we doing this? Let's question that. Although what works for the vendors, they have a lot of incentive to do so. And the attractiveness, of course, of being on the latest and greatest, but is it really strategic to the organization? Move from the cost-based decisions, not on an overall perspective, but on a modular perspective on each and every one, adopting the composable, modular, and the flexibility deployment of technology/innovation. And minimize outsourced commodity systems and focus on systems of innovation differentiation, the key theme and message I'd like to give today. But create that board approval checklist. We do have the luxury of interacting with the board and being responsible for the capital deployment decisions, irrespective, outside of not only our finance organization, the enterprise-wide organization, and the many functions that we partner with around the world and within the entire organization. So create a checklist so it makes sense, drive this deep into the organization and have folks understand that they have a strategic function, that we have to think of allocating the capital to generate the terms that will be and should be looked even at the board level. I believe that concludes my prepared remarks. Thanks, everybody, for your time. And Brittany, if we have any questions, we can move over to the Q&A portion of this segment.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Michael, for such an insightful presentation. As a reminder, audience members can still enter questions, and we can go ahead and review a few that came through. Michael, this first question asks, what are the most notable ways that the role of the CFO has changed over this current year?
Oh, in the current year, I would describe it more as evolving the CFO role ever forward towards assisting in a go-to-market, assisting in the overall administrative and shared services functions, away from our core transacting roots that we had in the debits and credits and the GL side of things. And I think we've really accelerated, not necessarily this year, but from the since the pandemic. I think we've seen that role expand significantly to be from even strategic finance to a strategic member, driving the decisions and applying the capital allocation to that. That's where I wouldn't say it's just this year. Probably if I want to highlight something this year would be How would we make an investments in some of these, latest trends on this generative AI? I get that question a lot this year, quite a bit.
Great, thank you. This next question, how are CFOs determining their top priorities?
Well, I would highlight those top 10 priorities that flashed earlier from that Gartner survey. And ultimately, depending on the life cycle of an entity, right? Are you early stage? Are you in a growth stage? Are you in a mature stage? But ultimately, from a prioritization, I would like to highlight one of the key themes talking about the business modular approach, flexibility, as well as the finance group, is to get the ROI. Look at the return on the capital deployed, and not always seeking a return the quickest payback period. I succumb to that quite often, have in my career, but also looking longer term through total cost of ownership, and how can this help for growth? How can this help with the go-to-market activities? And I think that's also, as far as an involving role of the CFO, is to think more along those lines versus transactional versus a historical standpoint in the profit and loss statement.
Excellent, thank you. It looks like we have time for at least a couple more questions. Do you think, I know you briefly touched on this, most organizations will eventually move to the cloud if they have not already?
So most organizations over time, likely. I would question for what technology, for what system of innovation, system of differentiate, system of record. I see the system of record as highlighting what's important for myself as I espouse using a system as a publicly traded entity now that's near 15 years old. Going to have to make that leap soon. Nonetheless, taking that and even putting it to the cloud, but still have the stability of the same system. Climbing up the stack to the system differentiation, system of innovation, I think that can make sense sooner rather than later to move over to the cloud. But it doesn't have to be one size fit all. And through the modular architecture, doing it at the right time to enhance the business needs and deployment of capital to focus on both growth and profitability, I would suggest, and we lead folks to making a determination that way in assessing that movement.
Perfect, thank you. It looks like we have time for at least one last question. This attendee says they understand the value of multi versus single vendor concept, but that being said, they've had an unfavorable experience with multi-systems effectively communicating transactions and data. Are you able to share any thoughts on that specific issue?
That's getting a little deeper than sitting here in the CFO chair, but that certainly highlights the significant challenge with regard to the modular, flexible / composable approach. And I would suggest, and this is where there's alignment with the finance arm, with the operational arm, your global shared services organization, with the IT group and your architectural review, is to always have that in mind when thinking of the modular approach, and not to look at, and this from an ROI on a modular perspective, you're looking at it on a siloed approach, but should take into account that there needs to be holistic integration involvement through that approach. I mean, those are the challenges and the pitfalls, but relative to the returns and the ability to have the flexibility that will enhance overall enterprise value through both growth and profitability, it's well worth it, in my view.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Michael. That is all the time we have for audience questions, but thank you again for such an excellent session. I also want to thank everyone else who joined us for this session today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be made available on demand following the event. Thank you again, Michael.
Thank you.